Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Now today I'm going to talk about a little bit of a book challenge that has been going on the YouTube community just a little bit. Ariel over at Books Unbound has decided that she wants to try to read all of Jane Austen's works within the year 2012, and so she's going through each of her books in published order and is giving them a try because she's never actually read any of Jane Austen's work before. I actually have read some of Jane Austen's work before. I read Pride and Prejudice for the first time in high school, and then I tried to read the rest of her works, but I've only really gotten to Sense and Sensibility and Emma, and those I read kind of in college, post-college. And so I've always wanted to read the other books that she's written, and I just never got a chance with all the other books that I wanted to read as well, so I figured that this would be a good opportunity to do so. It also helps that all of Jane Austen's work are available for free on e-readers, so if you have a Kindle or you have the app on your computer or your phone, you can download any of Jane Austen's works, so it's easy to have access to her books even if you don't feel like buying her books. So the first book in the series is Northanger Abbey. Obviously, this is the first book that was published by Jane Austen. This story follows Catherine, who's 17 years old, and she goes to visit some family friends of hers, Mr. and Mrs. Allen, over in Bath. Those of you who even know a little bit about Jane Austen, you know that a lot of the time that people are spent gathering together is spent in balls, or you're being invited over to people's houses, things like that. And so you need to be able to know people in order to socialize. In the beginning of the story, they don't really know anyone, so they're not really going anywhere, so Catherine is really bored, and then eventually Mrs. Allen runs into one of her friends from back in the day, and then they start getting invited. The friend also has a daughter. Her name is Isabella, and her and Catherine hit it off right away in the beginning of the book. They start to hang out a lot at these balls and going for walks together and going to each other's houses, things like that. Isabella has a brother named John who is very interested in Catherine, but Catherine isn't really interested in him. She's interested in Henry Tilney. Catherine quickly meets Henry at one of the balls in the story early on, but then they don't really see each other very much, and then eventually Catherine meets Henry's sister, and then they become friends, and then obviously the three of them start hanging out a little bit. Now Isabella is interested in Catherine's brother James, and so Catherine and James, and then Isabella and John, the four of them hang out quite a bit. James and Isabella often pair off so that they can spend time together, which leaves Catherine hanging out with John, which she does not like whatsoever. She's not interested in him at all. Catherine starts spending more time with Eleanor and Henry as the novel progresses, and then their father, General Tilney, ends up inviting Catherine to come with them back to their estate, which is Northanger Abbey. Like I said before, this is not my first introduction to Jane Austen. Obviously, I've read her books before, so I kind of know how the stories are written and her writing style, things like that, but this book felt very different from the other ones. There's kind of this outside narrator who is telling the whole story about all of these people. It mainly follows Catherine. The narrator kind of is telling the story, and the narrator will give like little snippets of information, or the narrator will kind of rant a little bit in the storyline, and it's very much, you can tell, Jane Austen just telling the story and putting in her rants. This book is also broken up into two parts. The first part takes place while Catherine is with Mr. and Mrs. Allen in Bath, and then the second part takes place at Northanger Abbey. The one problem I did have with this book is just the fact that these two parts seem like completely different stories. Like really, it could have been published completely separately and it would have felt okay, because the first part is just all about Catherine and her relationship with her friends Isabella and her brother John and their kind of relationship, and then the second part of the book you hear about Isabella and her John and James a little bit, but as part two continues, they kind of just drift away, and then it's all about the Tilneys. I mean, for me, it was kind of jarring to read it, just because when it skipped into part two, I was just like, it felt like a completely different book. Also, just because, and I had read this in the notes, but the second part of the book is also Jane Austen sort of mimicking the Gothic style. In this story, Catherine is obsessed with Gothic novels, and she talks about them a lot, and the storyline, and you know, it's brought up a lot by the narrator, things like that. And so the second part of the novel actually sort of mimics or satirizes Gothic novels, and so the style is very different and the way the story sort of unfolds is very different. Most of it is because Catherine's imagination sort of runs away with her. One of the storylines in this is like when she goes back to Northanger Abbey and she meets the general and she sees the house and everything like that. When she first hears about the Abbey, she gets really excited because she wants it to be like the Gothic novels that she's read about. And then she gets there and she finds out that a lot of it's been renovated and updated, so it's not quite the same as the Gothic novels. But then she realizes that the Tilney's mother, or General Tilney's wife, is missing, and she doesn't really know much about it and things like that, and the way people are referring to her makes it sound like she's missing, and so she starts to believe that General Tilney has something to do with it. And I won't spoil what happens in the end, whether or not you guys can read it and find out what happens, but yeah, basically she just starts to suspect General Tilney for either murdering or kidnapping his own wife. Again, that part of the story just felt kind of I don't want to say ridiculous, but it was kind of over the top. I wasn't expecting that from the story just because I just saw the relationships developing throughout the story, so I just assumed the last half would be about the relationship still, and so it very much wasn't like that. It felt more like a completely different book, like I've been saying. While I enjoyed the book, it definitely isn't my favorite Jane Austen novel. If I had to rank the Jane Austen novels that I've read so far, the first would be Pride and Prejudice, the second would be Sense and Sensibility, third would be Northanger Abbey, and fourth would be Emma. I don't know if that's just because of what in my head I'm expecting from a Jane Austen novel. Pride and Prejudice was my first one, and so I kind of had that sort of mindset when I'm reading Jane Austen novels, like that's the sort of style that I should be getting almost, and that might be prejudiced of me, but I just wasn't expecting something like this. I mean, it is funny, it is entertaining, but it's not my favorite. I would definitely recommend Northanger Abbey for anyone who hasn't read Jane Austen before and wants to give it a try, because this is probably the easiest of Jane Austen's novels to read, at least that I've read so far, and that's what I've heard also from others as well. The language is very simple. You don't need any sort of like translation or notes or anything like that to be able to understand what's going on. It's all very straightforward. If you're worried about that writing style or the language from that time period being difficult for you to understand, then Northanger Abbey should be no problem for you whatsoever. The next book in the series is Sense and Sensibility, and I don't think Ariel is going to be posting hers for a little bit, and so I'll be posting mine around the same time, hopefully, as long as I've read it, or reread it I should say, because I have read it, but I definitely want to reread it so that way my opinions are fresh, and also I can be able to compare and contrast it to Northanger Abbey now as well. I'll definitely leave a link below so that way you guys can check out Ariel's Austen adventures and also some of the other ones that I've seen posted online, and hopefully you guys might be interested in reading these books as well. If you've read Northanger Abbey or any Jane Austen whatsoever, please leave your comments below about your thoughts about it, whether you love her, hate her, anything like that. I would love to hear what you guys think about the books, and feel free to leave a video response below if you guys are doing this challenge as well. As usual, I'll leave links to my Goodreads, Tumblr, and Twitter, so you guys can follow me on there as well and see what I'm reading or anything like that. I still have 2 more book reviews I need to be doing, and I also have Lit Fest this weekend that I'll hopefully be recording or taking pictures for. So I have that video that I'll be recording as well, so you guys can look forward to that in the future. I'm trying to stick to a Tuesday, Thursday upload schedule as much as I possibly can, so I'm not sure how fast all of these videos will get up, but if I keep reading at the same speed I have been reading, then I might need to upload an extra video or something here and there, so hopefully you guys won't mind that, but I'm trying not to upload too many at once. So yeah, that's all I have for today, so thanks for watching. Now, and like I said earlier, I have the, it also helps that, this story follows Catherine as she goes to, and then as the story goes on, she starts spending more time with Henry and his sister. What is his sister's name? If you've read Jane Austen or Northanger Abbey, If you've read Northanger Abbey or no, stop laughing.